So My Hero Academia Chapter 408 is finally out, and with it we not only continue to learn about the horrific origins of All for One and One for All, that's right, we learn about both users this time around, but we also witness the absolutely horrifying spectacle of All for One going plus ultra. It's a next level monstrosity. But before we begin, don't forget to Detroit smash the subscribe button to keep up to date with all the Lunchtime Crew / My Hero content. And so, without further ado, let's jump right into My Hero Academia Chapter 408, titled Eyes Full of Determination. This chapter opens up exactly where the last chapter left off, with All for One reaching out and obliterating his fleeing younger brother in a sewer. During this moment, the text reveals to us that All for One not only gave Yoichi his name, but he specifically chose the name Yoichi, which contains the kanji for give and first, as in his eyes, his brother was the first thing he was given by the world. That's horribly loving, if I do say so myself. We also learn that this event of All for One killing his brother took place 2 months after he escaped from All for One with the second user Kudo and the third user, whose name we learn is Bruce. Yep, you heard me right, we got Yoichi, Kudo, and Bruce. Horikoshi is really pulling from the bottom of the barrel with that one. But anyways, after All for One sends his brother to oblivion, leaving blood splatters everywhere, All for One is left locking eyes with Kudo. And as the two stare at one another, we see the differences in the two quirk wielders. While All for One's eyes are angry, colorless, pupilless, and lacking any form of humanity, Kudo's eyes are teary, vibrant, full of color, and reflecting the image of the person he sees standing before him, the man who killed Yoichi. Unfortunately, this is the last we see of this moment, as on the next page, the story cuts to a city skyline where we see All for One in a penthouse apartment holding onto and looking at the only remains of his brother. His hand, which interestingly enough is in the same condition as the hands Shigaraki wears. And speaking of Shigaraki, the way in which All for One disposed of Yoichi is awfully similar to how Shigaraki got rid of his family. Could it be that they both used the same quirk to do so, confirming that All for One gave Shigaraki decay? It's just a theory. A game! Regardless, as All for One looks at Yoichi's hand, he notices that the quirk he gave his brother is no longer in his body. Something that shouldn't be possible, unless, as All for One eventually realizes, Yoichi actually passed on his quirk to someone else. And with this realization, the story cuts away and on over to Kudo and Bruce. Still can't get over that name, where Bruce is in the middle of performing a medical examination on Kudo. Kudo, who by the way still doesn't have the scar across his face, which we see on his vestige body, comments about how his body has started feeling weird. This prompts Bruce to ask if he was touched by All for One during the battle, but Kudo ignores this question and instead asks for the results of their tests. And it's here where Kudo learns that he now has 2 quirk factors in his body, his own quirk Gear Shift and a very small, seemingly insignificant quirk. If only he knew. And with this, the story then shifts to parallel perspectives where we see both All for One and Kudo in their respective areas reminiscing about Yoichi. However, there's a stark difference between what the two remember, as we see 2 Yoichis sitting down in the same position doing the exact same thing, yet one is in a dark room surrounded by nothing wearing a black worn t-shirt, while the other is in the light sitting in a chair in a house with a drink beside him wearing a much brighter and cleaner shirt, which is clearly a parallel as to how both Kudo and All for One see Yoichi as a person. The 2 Yoichis then go on to say, "I couldn't stop my brother. He only sees people as toys. Yet, he kept me alive. If only he cared more about other people." After saying this, the 2 Yoichis then merge into one as he finishes this speech saying, "The power to give and take could have been the kindest in the whole world." And with this speech, both Kudo and All for One then come to a similar realization at the exact same time. As Kudo states, "Yoichi's will now lives within me," while All for One states, "That means he still exists. The story then cuts to a double spread image of All For One, as behind him we see a montage of his life from this moment onwards. We see flashes of him killing Kudo and Bruce, starting a cult, meeting Kyorai Garaki, the doctor, trying to steal One For All from Banjo and failing, cutting N, the 6th user of One For All, in half, and killing Nana Shimura. Although this montage finally comes to an end with the introduction of All Might, as we actually get a glimpse at the pair's first fight, in which we see the fateful moment All Might obliterated the top half of All For One's head. God, I hope we get an OVA of that first fight. It must have been glorious. And we also learned that All For One was sent to the morgue after this fight with All Might, but his body was taken and saved by Dr. Kyodai. And following all of this, the story cuts right back to the present, and back to All For One's fight with Bakugo, where All For One, sick of Bakugo being a nuisance, starts to wonder if Bakugo could be a descendant of Kudo. However, he quickly throws this theory away, as he notes that he personally killed Kudo's entire family, as well as all the women and children that were close to him. Yeah, he immediately nipped that theory in the bud. Sorry guys. Plus, he also reassures himself that if Bakugo and Kudo were blood related, he would have noticed it immediately when he met Bakugo at Kamino. Although it is with this thought that it finally clicks. It's not exactly Bakugo's looks that remind him of Kudo, but rather Bakugo's eyes. As, unlike back in Kamino, Bakugo's eyes right now are filled with nothing but determination to defeat him, just like Kudo's were way back when. With this realization, All For One thinks about he can't keep fighting and getting even younger, because he still needs to be able to fight when he gets to Shigaraki, accepting that he will struggle in trying to pin down and claim Shiggy. And so, All For One decides that enough is enough, and it's finally time to complete his goals of killing Bakugo and getting to Tomura, by unleashing every single one of his quirks at the exact same time, and going plus ultra. And as inside One For All, Yoichi's vestige turns in a panic as it senses a massive surge in power within his brother, we get this image of the ungodly, massive, disgusting monstrosity that is All For One's full power. And I mean, sweet mother of God, that is some berserk level monster. Holy shit! There's just heads, limbs, and mouths everywhere. It's also interesting to note that this new gruesome form is called Release Every Quirk Factor All For One Goal. Headshot, in seeing this beast appear, realizes that All For One's plan is to use all that volume of energy to propel himself forward at an unbelievable speed through Bakugo and at Shigaraki. But All Might notes that in doing so, All For One's body will revert back to that of a baby. So this means that this is truly All For One's final gamble. And so, with this revelation and the monstrous beast before him, a flying Bakugo looks on at All For One, and as he does so, he just simply smiles, stating, "Are you stupid? There's no way this dumb thing will win." And that's it for chapter 408. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like. For more content like this, subscribe to the Lunchtime crew. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. It's lunchtime.